Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Quick Fix Fantasy. I am Crispy, one of your hosts this evening, and I'm joined by the one, the only, Dr. Doug. What is up, Dr. Doug?
How's it going, Chris? It is going well. I think last week when we recorded, my heat was out and it had just come back, and because I never pay my bills or something to that effect, but they came out today and actually fixed the problem. The last week we've been just hanging on by a thread, but today they were here, so I can't complain. It's cold outside, but at least it's warm in the house finally. How about you?
I'm doing good. So, first off, I don't think they could shut heat off. It's a safety thing. So, I don't think anyone has to. This isn't advice, but if you don't pay your heat bill, they can't just shut it off. You're going to freeze. But outside of that, I'm doing good. Today's a good day. Ranked play is out after yesterday. Season 1 Reloaded came out for MW3. And for the lack of better words, it was a dumpster fire. But shout out to the team over there, not for putting out the update, but for, making things right. Staying up all night. You were seeing updates come out at like 3 a.m. So shout out to them. And ranked play is out as of today. I've gotten the opportunity because it's for work to try it out a couple times. And it's a good time. It's really scratching the itch that I had for, progressing through ranks. I think BPL was that thing for me to really scratch the itch of just try hard 8 lobbies. But this is really doing it for me, like being able to climb ranks and stuff like that. So I'm happy today. Today's a good day. And if you're listening to this on the pre-recorded, which you are because we don't put it out any other way, it's Friday, so it's a good day for you, I hope. A lot of good CDL action this week coming up. A lot of good action last week. A lot to be looking forward to for this week. A lot of teams playing for their life. But the lines we have to talk about are Friday, so we will be talking about these in due time. But before we talk about what is to come, let's talk about what has been. And Dr. Doug, how was your weekend? You're up a good amount of money. You were telling me beforehand. You've been eating at steakhouses every night because you did so well. So, tell me what's going on. What happened?
Yeah, no. Last week was tough. Me and a friend have been working on some more like S&D modeling. So S&D PrizePicks was not something I got really into last year much. S&D scores are just they're more volatile. Like the average is 7, but a person can easily drop 15 or something in a game. They're very score dependent. A 6-5 game and a 6-0 game can have way different kill totals for all 8 players. But yeah, I was playing around with that a bit. Just like getting my money in a lot of spots just to try to see how things, like to track things, see how the models are doing and stuff. I think I came up maybe a little under. I was like almost break even, I think. But yeah, like I don't know, it's just more of an exploratory weekend. I still hold that like these early weeks in the season are just like getting your bearings. Like it's hard to assess team strength really well when teams have only played a handful of other teams in the league, and like you're getting a small sample on players specific roles within their teams too. I don't know. I was happy with the week. I didn't make money, but I feel like I learned a lot that will help me make money later, if that doesn't sound like just cope. But yeah, it was good. I played mostly S&D, and yeah, no. How about you? How was your weekend?
So I have to say it. I did not play anything this weekend, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm a value guy, right? I'm a value guy, and there wasn't a lot of value on the board for me this weekend. I was going to play, like money line and spreads this weekend. I was like, yeah, I'm going to try something different, dig myself out of this NBA hole. But I never did because no line to me really had the value to it. The only one that did, and no one would take this, was like LAG versus Boston. No one was going to take that. Like if you did, first off, like call me because you could see the future. Second of all, like enjoy the money. No one would have taken that. I didn't want to. And the matches were just so close that like, I don't know. There wasn't a lot of meat on the bone for me. And maybe this is a lesson I can give. You usually get the lessons, but don't feel like you have to bet on stuff every single weekend. I get people enjoy to do it with small money just so you have skin in the game and you enjoy watching it. But like you don't have to chase, bets just for the sake of thinking you have to. That is how you get in trouble. That is how you start digging this hole that you have to make yourself out of. When in reality, you could have just took the weekend off, pocketed that money, and double down on something that you really feel like it could happen. So that's my little lesson. Don't go chasing waterfalls, excellent song, but also don't go chasing bets that you don't truly believe in. I've had a problem with that in the NBA. And I'm losing the shirt off my back there, but, a little break. I know it's a Call of Duty podcast, and I talk about the NBA a lot, but I also want to say this to you. I don't know if you follow the Apex scene a lot, but PrizePicks is now available for Apex Legends. I
Yeah, I
don't
saw
know how
that.
that's gonna work. I'm very like, do you like? Do they have like you could take like defenses? Do you just take a team as a whole
Yeah,
and like pick
I'm
their
gonna pull it up.
placement? Like I saw
Yeah,
Hal tweeted it today. I don't know how that's gonna work because like historically they're not high kill matches. It's a game of like mental and positioning and all that good stuff. So I don't know
no,
how
it
that's gonna
is.
work.
It's just kills. Yeah, maps 1 through 3 summed kills by the individual player. So yeah, like the totals are like 2.5, 3, 4. Hal is 6.5, biggest on the slate by 1.5 kills.
I'm smashing under
Um,
every time on that. Like not going against his skill, but just the way the game plays.
Yeah, I would
It's
need to see some data on like what the distributions of individual player kills look like. I haven't played Apex since like literally season 1 or like maybe even before there was ranked. Like I remember playing when it first came out, but I don't remember how the kills count. Like is it max damage gives you the kill or last bullet gives you the kill? Like that's a big thing in Overwatch too if you're like betting, and like is like how you actually get credit for kills is like a bit more confusing than in COD. It's always whoever gets the last bullet will get credit for the kill. In Overwatch, it didn't used to be like that, where it would just be whoever got the majority got the kill.
yeah, I'm interested to see how that goes. But we don't have to talk about that. I just thought it was very interesting. Call of
Yeah,
Duty podcast, Call of Duty and NBA podcast apparently, but not Apex Legends. Shout out Apex Legends, great game, but we're not talking about it. So any like lessons you learned, anything that jumped out to you this past weekend that you want to fill the good people in on?
yeah. Yeah, I mean it's yeah, I usually like to do a little lesson, and I was thinking about what I could talk about today. I think like the big thing that stands out to me from modeling search and destroy. So I was looking at like the like kill level modeling, like modeling the actual engagements that happen, how likely players are to get in them, how likely they are to win them and stuff like that. The thing that's really interesting is when you think about entry fraggers. Like, I mean, I think Abizi is like your stereotypical guy who gets in a ton of engagements that, or in first blood engagements, I guess. And like the thing that on prize picks, you can't bet on two players on the same team, but you can bet on opposite teams. And so in search, I think more than either of the other two modes by a long shot, the success of one team really does lead to the failure of the other team because kills are the way that you win the game. And so like in the example here, like if I told you that I knew Atlanta was going to win 6-0, one thing you could probably gather is that Abizi's probably getting some successful first bloods. First bloods, I think you win the round after first blood over 70% of the time if it's untraded. So like they're definitely winning rounds off first bloods. Who's getting them? Well, probably I bet would be on Abizi. But the other part of that is who is he killing at each of those times? And well, you just so happen to have a pretty good hunch on that because you can look at how often players get in first blood engagements. So I think I call them first blood engagements. They should really just be called first engagements. But like, yeah, like that can be interesting on its own. So I put down a stat here. Abizi's has been involved in 31% of Atlanta's first engagements, which is if everyone had it equal, that would be 25, 25, 25, 25. So he's getting in more than his share of first engagements, but he's winning 76% of them. Well, that's great. But like some players might not have that many first bloods when we see these charts as like leaders in first bloods per round, leaders of like, yeah, total first engagements and stuff. It's a little different. Like Journey, I said here, he's been in 35% of all first engagements for Miami, which is even more than Abizi, but he's only won 43% of them versus Abizi's 76%. So when you're looking at the stats, he might not pop as somebody, oh, he's not a big first blood getter, but he's a first death getter. And like that can be interesting. So yeah, if Miami were playing Atlanta and I had premonition that I knew that Atlanta would win 6-0, you better believe I'm jamming the Abizi over combined with the Journey under, because dying first makes it really hard to get kills. It's actually impossible to get a kill in a round when you die first. So like it's yeah, I think that's an interesting little correlation when we think about the correlation between players. Like when one team does well, the other team does a bit worse, but I think it's exacerbated significantly for first engagement players. And like simming the games out kill by kill, you sort of see that. Like it just has to be that way. If you're dying first every round, there's just no time to get kills. And the opposite, if you're getting kills in the first engagement every time, it's hard for your team to lose. Like, and so your team will win and their team won't be able to get kills. And like you see these big spreads between two specific players, which are the first engagement getters.
That's
Does that make
interesting.
sense?
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I would have never thought of that. But it does make sense. My brain is doing backflips right now, but it makes sense. When you land on your feet, it's interesting. So those are your lessons. I want to say one more thing before we get into the games. I'm full of knowledge right now. with season one reloaded just dropping, a lot of hard point changes have happened. The current professionals are not playing on that patch. They're still playing on 2 patches ago. So with that being said, if you listen to what I said earlier and you take those weeks off and you don't really chase it, your bankroll might be a little higher for after Major One when they get up to date and they start playing on that new patch. That might be, a weekend of unders if you're still, testing out these respawns and you don't know really what's going on. The only one that did not change was Skid Row. The rest have changed. And it might take a little getting used to because, you can't practice it going into a major because you obviously, want to play the patch that you're going to be playing on. A lot of these guys probably won't be playing ranked play because it'll mess up their mental on like where these hills are. So that's something to look out for, I think, is after the major, when the patch catches up, maybe look at those unders and realize that everyone is trying to figure this out together in the league, including the coaching staff, including the players. Like, no one knows how it should play properly. So that's just something to look out for.
Yeah, huge implications. The changing of the hills significantly impacts the total number of kills in the game because the spacing of hills changes the pace that the game plays at, which would then affect the kills. Like, I think it'll be interesting to see how teams adapt after the major and like it may introduce a little more variance into just like team outcomes. Like team A can beat team B a little bit more often or a little less often because there's this variance thrown in. But also just like the raw pace of play of the maps when we talk about PrizePicks is like will be different. You see that a little bit. I don't know what the exact numbers are, but it feels to me that not Skid Row, Subbase has been playing a bit slower in terms of total engagements per map, just from the way that the spawns have changed. And it's like these things can make a substantial difference and do not even can they do. Anytime those sorts of things happen, all of your prior data becomes a little bit tainted. Like how good is the knowing what the kills per game was before they made the spawn changes? It's probably less important than it was back then, but it's still more important than nothing. And so thinking about those things is going to be a key to having a good edge. Don't just chase like, oh, this has to be good. It's like, well, the hard point changes make it so that this map ends 10% sooner than it used to or whatever.
Yeah, I think Subbase is a great call out because obviously the P2 P3 string was a massive thing, but now P3 is P4 and P3 is back where they pretty much swapped, but P3 is like outside of, the middle warehouse tunnel, what you want to call it. So these maps are definitely going to play differently. Same with like Terminal, P1 is now Book. So, security, TSA, whatever you call it, spawns are beneficial because you don't have to run up the escalators, go into the hallway. Like these maps are going to play a lot different, and not even just playing different when it comes to like rotations and whatnot. You got to figure out the spawns again. Like the biggest hurdle is figuring out the spawns in this game, and now people have to do it again. So I'm curious to see how it plays out. These guys are professionals; they will figure it out. It's just how quick and who's going to learn it first, because we're going to be in the heat of things post Major One, and curious to see it.
Yeah.
But with that being said, we have a major shocker when it comes to the lines that we're seeing this weekend. In my opinion, we see LAG getting favored in the first match of Friday. As of time of recording, LAG is minus 138 against Minnesota Rocket at plus 100, even though I'm shocked. I am shocked. I still don't think, LAG should be favorites, regardless of, their finish against, Boston this weekend. I don't think that really tips the scale to be favorites. But what do you think about the lines? And then we can get into the nitty gritty.
Yeah, I obviously I'm a bit biased the other way, but this is what I would have expected. I think, if you watch the Atlanta versus LAG game, I think that the Boston outcome was at least within the realm of possibility. The Atlanta game, they looked fairly strong. They looked capable of taking map one or map three in a different world, and like that's good. Like that might not be good enough against a team like FaZe, but against a team like Minnesota, I think it can. So I think it's two things. One, I think that although I don't think the books really watch the games that much or whatever, but like they're taking note. Like LAG has like pretty substantial success in the has had substantial success in the respawn modes relative to the strength of schedule. And I think they beat Boston. I think Boston is still stronger than them, and that just, again, I guess says the same thing, which is that they're strong in respawn. I don't think they're good at search. That's what I was saying last week on the podcast. I don't think they're that good at search. Still don't think they are, but you don't need that to win, really. And then I think the other part is I think Minnesota is bad. I think they haven't really looked that good, and I think I don't know. It's hard for me to say because I really do think it's about right. This is pretty much exactly where I would have priced it if it were me. I think yeah, it's not like LG's huge favorites here either. They're just slight favorites.
Yeah, still,
but yeah, I think
the meat on the bone, the meat on the bone, you know?
Yeah, I don't think I would bet either side of this personally. I think it's about right. I think if you think that, yeah, I don't know. It's just hard. It's hard for me. Like, yeah, the prior on LAG is that they are really bad. That was what it was coming into the season. It's maintained even despite their win against 100T, who now doesn't appear to be very good either. It even persisted after they lost to Atlanta, but then when they beat Boston, yeah, now suddenly people seem to be taking notice. So I guess maybe it's just a recency thing. But yeah, I think it's fair. And I think from a betting perspective, and like we'll get into the picks here a little, I don't think anyone would argue that we can at least expect some close games. Like I don't think that either one of these teams is substantially better than the other, and that is really good for overs on PrizePicks. The first one that I picked out here, Assault's at over under 18.5 map one for hard point. He's gone over 18.5, 6 out of his 8 hard points so far this year. And I mean, that's including games against stronger teams than Minnesota. But also, yeah, as I mentioned, I think this game goes longer. And yeah, I have him around more like 20.5 was what my projection is. And I think, yeah, I don't know, I think there's a lot of edge there to be had. I honestly think, yeah, I think if I remember correctly, I made some notes, but like I think a couple of the LAG guys are interesting overs in the first map, just because, yeah, I think this game will be long. I think that people like Diamond Con have been having some really big games. Like I think it's very possible.
Yeah, I agree with that. Diamond Con's someone that jumps out to me as someone to, look out for. He's been playing exceptionally well out there, I feel like. Outside of just like player props, with the lines being this close and the games potentially going the distance, this might be something to look at a map total. With the lines being this close, I'm assuming it's going to be like 4.5. So if you think a game 5's coming, which, definitely could be with these two teams, they can trade maps, whatnot, but I would be eyeing, over 4.5 maps. I think this could go game 5. Who's going to win it? Don't know. I think Minnesota personally, but the map total is something that I would definitely keep an eye on as well. Like if it's 3.5, yeah, I doubt it would be, but I would smash it.
Yeah, I'm seeing over 4.5 plus 150, under 4.5 minus 200.
Value. That is value right there. Plus 200, double your dough.
No, minus 200.
Oh, there's a plus 200.
Overs,
yeah, I guess
overs plus 150 on over 4.5.
Oh, I would go over. I would take the over.
Yeah.
Plus 150.
Yeah.
Money and a half.
Yeah.
Yep.
Money and a half.
Money
yeah.
and a half.
Yeah, I do like that. I do think plus 150 on 4.5 is probably pretty good, especially because, as we've established, I don't think that LEG has much of an edge, if any, in search. Getting to that game 5 just becomes a little bit easier when you're like much less likely to win map 2. What are the odds they sweep all the respawns, basically, is what you're asking there. So yeah, I do like that. I think that's a good call out. I was curious what the let me see what the spread on map 1 is, if they have that here. Doesn't look like Bet365 has a line on the spread, or do they? Yeah, they do. Plus 8.5. Yeah, so they're saying this game will be very close.
Wow.
So yeah, I think that sort of backs it. And we go back to like using any data that we can get. I think the fact that both Bovada and Bet365, at least that I know, that I can see here in Oklahoma, like they offer these spreads on the individual maps, they can be another nice data point to use when I'm trying to think of like, yeah, I typically take my player projections and adjust them for what I think the point differential from the map is going to be. And like, this is a great way to either check my projections to see, am I about right? And then also, yeah, I can just raw put these in and say, what would the kills look like if the games ended on average only 8-point split between the two teams in hardpoint? That's those are long games.
Yes, that is extremely close. Any final thoughts you have on either one of these teams before we move on to the next game?
No, I don't think so. I think this, I guess, for just like general interest, like this game is going to be very important for playoff winners bracket. Both of these teams have the potential to make winners bracket. With LAG is a bigger chance to make it, just they have the 2 wins where Minnesota only has one. But yeah, this will be a huge game. If Minnesota can win this, they'll put themselves in a really good spot to make winners bracket. And then on the other side, the only way that LAG can really fumble the bag is getting smoked here. So I think this game will mean a lot for both teams. We go back to the giving 100% thing that we seem to always do. Like this game you'll be seeing 110% out of everyone in this game because it is really important. And like, it's very tangible. It's hard at the beginning of the season, even when the game, will probably be important between two similarly ranked teams. Like now it's very obvious. Each of these teams has one game left. Like they need to win here if they want to secure winners bracket.
Yeah, there is a lot of high stress this weekend for a bunch of teams. And, the 110%, I agree, will be out, but it's going to be a banger weekend with that being said. And let's move on to the second game. We have, as of time of recording, Miami and Optic Texas. Miami is plus 250 and Texas is minus 350. I'm taking Miami here.
Interesting. At plus 250 or just straight up, you think Miami's the better team than Texas?
I'm taking the plus 250. I'm taking the money line.
Okay.
They're winning.
Yeah, I think that could be there could be some value there. I mean I tweeted this out, like the books have never really swayed much on Miami's implied strength at all season, which is sort of where I've been at too. Like they played bad teams to start and then better teams to finish, and like they haven't looked good recently. And so I don't know, I still sort of think Miami's actually not that good, and that people are just like, yeah, I mean they look strong to start out the season because they got to beat up on the worst teams, but like, and I think I tweeted like the teams they've beaten combined record is like 3-30 or something like that across maps. Like it's just they were literally playing the worst of the worst. So I don't know. It's tough. I think the team can be really good. They have like moments of it, but I don't know. I'm not convinced. I'm definitely not taking Texas at minus 350, but it's a I don't know, tough for me to get out of bed for that.
I also think we've talked about this plenty of times too. It's the Call of Duty scene when it comes to the wagering side of things being so young that the books don't have a lot to go off of, and two, like I think they still follow the big names. I think they know the name out of the the select 3-4 teams, whatever. And they're like, yeah, I know the name. They must be better. And I think that lines don't adjust properly on there. I do think that Miami is a good team. I think that they have to, button a bunch of things up. But I think that, the fundamentals are there with these guys. The chemistry is there with them. And I think they could be a dangerous team. And I think that we see a shock and they take down Optic. And everyone takes a step back. They're like, okay, the quote unquote middle of the pack teams actually can't compete with the top dogs. And it comes full circle to, the beginning. But that's my initial, thought process on it. Honestly, I was very impressed with Journey this weekend. I'm very, very high on Journey right now. And I think, let him buzz around. And I think that he can give this team hell. I think he can give a lot of teams hell. But we shall see.
Yeah. No, I think that's probably fair. They'll have to show me this week if they can. I will say, like, to your point though, like they are able to beat bad teams, and it is hard to be a top team unless you're able to beat the bad teams consistently, and like they've at least done that this year. Like I think there's sort of the spread in the middle pack teams is the teams that like they are better than the worst teams, but yeah, like they can beat them on any given day or whatever. And then the opposite, like you've got those top of the pack teams that will lose to the best teams, but they can beat them on any given day. And so like I think maybe that's where we're talking about Miami here is like, yeah, are they a team that they'll handle business on all the bad teams and then get an upset here or there on Atlanta, Texas? Like, are they that team, or are they the team that's like every time they battle Las Vegas, it's going to be a grueler, and then yeah, they're not showing up on Sundays or whatever. But yeah, no, I think it's fair. I just want to get into the first pick that I was thinking about here. I wanted to pull up the stats for Pred. I think Pred in control is interesting here. He is over under 23.5 right now in control, which seems fairly high. I would say, like, to all of our point about Miami, like, I don't think they're a team that's going to be easily walked over in control. I don't think this is going to be a 3-0. And like just looking at Pred, He's got only one game that he's gone under 23.5 this season. It was a 3-0 win against Vegas, and so he only had 15 kills, but I mean the game was only like 8 minutes long, so you can't really blame him for that. And outside of that, he had a 27 kill 3-0 against Carolina. And now we talk about score differential every single podcast, but 27 kills in a 3-0 is crazy. 9 kills per round. So just to get to 23, he'd only have to add 2.5 more kills to that to get over. I don't know. To me, I think this is a spot where Pred could easily, even if it goes to only 4 rounds, easily find the over on 23.5. And if this goes to 5, I think it's a slam dunk that it would go over. So to me, yeah, if Miami can keep it even remotely close, win the Ds they're supposed to win on a defense favored map or something like that, like Invasion, like I think this easily goes 3-1. I think you see Pred easily clear 23.5. He's averaging 24.5 on the season. Yeah, and he's gone over 4 out of 5 times. So like, I don't know. It feels pretty solid to me. Thoughts on that?
No, I like that. You are the analytics guy, so I just wait and I hear and I wait for my mind to be blown. But if history, speaks for anything, then it makes sense. I think Miami could squeak out a round in control, and like you said, squeak out that round. And if he follows suit, like he needs that 2.5 more kills, that's easy money for, Mr. Pred. So that's definitely one that I'm going to be, I'll chew on it. I'm going to chew on it. I'm going to taste a little bit, but at the end of the day, probably not going to spit it out. I'm probably going to eat it. I'm probably going to take it.
I will say one dangerous spot that I came across when I was looking through this that I just wanted to warn our listeners, I guess, about a little bit here. So Shotzi in control is 22.5, is over under 22.5, and if you look at his average is right around 22.5. I have like my projection of him a little bit higher, but if you look at the numbers that he's put up in these games, he went 32, 34, 13. 20, 15. And so the thing that I see here is just there's a huge distribution hiding in the average. If you look at 22.8 average kills per control, you think, okay, like, yeah, if this game goes a little longer, like Doug's saying, maybe I like the over here. But I would caution that, like, one, I'd say, okay, which shots are you getting? You getting the 35 kill shots or the 10 kill shots? Especially if you like Pred over, it may be a little harder for Shotzzy to also find all those kills too. But two, I just think that this is a great example of when averages don't really tell you the whole story. Like, yeah, he hasn't come within 4 kills of 20 or 7 kills of 20 but once this whole season. Like, he's only gone way above or way below. So like, yeah, it's I would just be cautious. I don't think that the shots he plays is very interesting to me. But like, yeah, and I mean, maybe this is only one example. There's probably other ones. I just saw this one when I was sort of doing my research for this, and that, like, to watch out for. Like, he's got the ultimate, like, boom or bust type profile right now, and also a great example of the dangers of small sample size too. Like, we're only 5 shots. He's played 5 controls. Pretty much every team has played either 5 or 6 controls. Like, we can't glean that much until we're more at like the 20 number. I think 15, 20 is when I'll start being like, yes, like this guy's clearly averaging 6.4 kills per round or whatever, something like that on Karachi.
Yeah, that is one I will avoid. I am going to avoid that. There's not enough information for me to actually be able to take it, and I'm not in the business of wondering who I'm going to get that day. Like you said, there has to be a bigger sample size, and until consistency is shown, that is a player I stay away from. Show me consistency, I'll show you the money, and hopefully you show me the money in return. But until then,
even more money.
Even more money if there's value, meat on the bone. Move on to, this is going to be a banger. Last match of Friday, banger city. Toronto and New York subliners. As of time of recording, we have Toronto minus 150 and New York plus 110. So we have Toronto being favorites in this matchup. What do you think about it, Doug?
I don't get it, really. I don't think it makes any sense. Last time I checked, New York is 5-0, Toronto's 4-1. They have a better map win record than Toronto does. I don't really see it, I guess. I mean, I think both teams are exceptionally good, and maybe we're just splitting hairs here. Minus 150 seems big to me. I would have expected this game to be a minus 120 plus 120 type of game or something. Like, I don't know. It's I don't like it. I think New York is better than they're giving them credit for here. It's just hard to discount New York, what New York has done so far. But yet the bookmakers are doing it, and they are smarter than me in many cases. So, but yeah, I think on like that, my overall take on this is like, what? Like this game will be close, and then because I think that we'll go into, I think overs like probably are pretty good. I think these two teams are. It's going to be a battle. I don't think anyone thinks it's not, but except maybe Bet 365. But yeah, I think it'll be a close game, and I think we'll get our longer games. We'll get our 5 round controls. I think this will be a good game. Probably go game 5 or something. But yeah, I don't know. No, it's interesting. What do you think? Do you think Toronto minus 150 is fair?
No, I don't. I think they're both great teams. I do think they're both great teams, but how can you take their records and their performance up to this point and give Toronto the upper hand when it comes to, being the favorite? I think this is backwards. I think, New York should be the minus. I don't think anyone should have a big plus in front of their number. I would say I like the minus 120 plus 120. To be honest with you, I would have rather to pick them. I would have rather to pick them than to see this. Yeah. It feels backwards to me. And, this is, I don't know. It's very weird. I think it's going to be a bloodbath. I think these teams are going to go the distance. I don't think it's going to be a blowout. But then again, what players are we going to get? That might fall into it as well. Again, we know Envoy's a phenomenal player, but are we going to get, Envoy, or are we going to get Envoy? You know what I mean? So, it's tough to tell. And we haven't seen that on New York yet, where there's two sides of these players. It's, pretty consistent for the most part. No one's really shit the sheets in, any matchup. So, I think it's backwards. And I like the thought on the overs of this as well. Again, we're talking map total. I like the over on it as well. I think there's a lot for these teams to play for, not for, seeding and whatnot, but more so, well, probably some seeding too, but more so just two top dogs squaring off. And I think there's a lot of, internal proving that these teams have to do against one another. And, I think at the end of the day, it's going to be a very, very, very entertaining match to watch.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't really clock this before. I'm just looking at the stats. Toronto's road so far, they've beaten LAG, they've beaten Carolina, they've beaten 100T, all teams that are fairly weak, I would say. They lost to Boston, and then they beat Seattle, who I do think Seattle is fairly good. Seattle's been pretty good. I stand by that. In our first episode, I called it. I thought Seattle would be better than 100T in Minnesota, and I feel like I was really vindicated. I've been vindicated so far, I should say. It's too early to make it.
That's a great song too.
It's too early to take a victory lap, but yeah, I was surprised. Their schedule's a bit weaker than I was. When I looked at it, I was like, really? Those are the 5 teams they've played? And you're giving me what, minus 150 or whatever? But yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Envoy thing. Speaking of the Shotzzy boomer bust profile, which Envoy are we going to get for controls? He had 14, 20, 13, and then his last 2 are 35 and 39. Yeah. So, yeah, it's I think that's it. I mean, from a strictly empirical standpoint, he's averaging 24.5 kills a game, and his over/under is 22.5 in control, but not one that I'm going to be touching because, yeah, he may be over 22.5, but 2 of those were 35 and 39 kills, and the other ones were 10. So, yeah, it's tough, but yeah, I mean, if Envoy doesn't show up, I mean, this might be a quicker series, but if he does show up, I'm still not even really clear. Is he a 25 kill player, or is he truly has he reached final? He went from no form to final form in 2 weeks or whatever. I don't know. It's interesting. Dropping 39 is impressive, although it was both of those games are 3-2 games, but still, I think that's around a 30 kill game on in an average length map is around a 30 kill game. So yeah, it's I don't know. It's interesting, but I wouldn't be touching Envoy here.
Yeah, me either. I personally just even outside of this, I think Hydra might be too much for them to handle just on his own with the way that he plays compared to how their subs play. Phenomenal subs on their team, don't get me wrong, but Hydra's a problem. Everyone knows he's a problem. Kismet's in final form. Their SMG duo is they're deadly. And then you have, Skies and Sib who have been playing phenomenal as well. And you have Sib here posting thirst trap dancing videos on Twitter. He's feeling good. I'm not going against someone after they post a video dancing at their monitor with the sleeve on. I'm scared shitless of that. I want nothing to do with it. Want nothing to do with
That
it.
seems wise.
Yes.
Yeah.
But what else? What else? Really? What's jumping out to you from a player prop,
Yeah.
standpoint?
Yeah, I highlighted Insight here. I think Insight map 1 over under 19 and a half. It's interesting. He's gone over 19 and a half 5 out of 7 times so far this season. With the only ones that he didn't go under both in 100-point wins against LAG and against LAT. Those are the only maps he didn't go over 19 and a half. He's averaging 21 and some change. I have him more like 21 and a half if you adjust for the score differential. And so if we think this game is going to go long, I think that's a slam dunk. I think 19 and a half, I think he can easily get there. He's gotten there in pretty much every game, including a couple they won. He got to 24 in a game that they won 250 to 116 against LAG. So I think it's very easy for him, or not easy, but it's very possible for him to go over here. I think that's the big one for me. I think Insight makes a lot of sense. Scrap is interesting. He's over under 23 and a half in hardpoint. Again, we like the environment here, longer games, but 23 and a half is obscene. That's a lot. I mean, I think Hydra might be the only player with more than that right now on the schedule. But like, yeah, it's a lot either way. But I don't hate it. Like I made a note. I didn't know if I could in good conscience say it's like a great bet or anything. But I do think that he's averaging 25 and a half per game over over 7 hard points. I think he can easily get over 23 and a half. Yeah, his game under 23 and a half were the same 2 games that Insight was under his 19 and a half. The 153 to 250 win against LAG, he had 15, and then when they beat Seattle 250-151, he had 23. So he was a half point under. So the same games. I don't know. It sort of fits the exact same archetype that the Insight pick has, where it's just long game, player who's already averaging more than what they're getting on PrizePicks. And yeah, it just doesn't seem right. But who knows? Maybe Toronto comes out and 100-point clubs New York first map, and we look like idiots because the bookmakers knew minus 150 was exactly where it needed to be. But I think that I like that. I think there's some meat on those bones for sure from Toronto. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Again, 2 phenomenal teams going to be an absolute battle out there. I like the points you've made on those 2 guys. It's going to be, if I see a blowout in one of these maps, I'm going to be mind blown, because I expect literally all these maps to be like, up into like a photo finish on all of them rather. I think I brought it up at the beginning, but map total is something I'm looking at. And if it comes to, respawn, we'll say hard point, right? Taking points might be worth it in this situation if the number is good enough. So like, say a team is getting, 10 and a half for hard point. That might be something I would look at personally if you're really expecting it to be that close. Obviously make sure like the number makes sense. But, if you would feel confident with a team getting a certain amount of hill points, if you would, or points in general, that might be something to look at as well.
Yeah. It's interesting. I haven't played around much, or like I guess I have played around some. I haven't found much value in the single game spreads. I think they're just tough. Like in hardpoint, like it's so hit or miss. Like like you get points in groups of 40 to 60 points for most hills or whatever. So it makes it very hard to like reliably project the final score of the game. But yeah, it's an interesting angle. I tried to play that angle a lot last year and just never found enough bet. Like I made a couple spread bets on points, but like it's tough to find value. But
yeah, I'm gonna throw it at the wall and see if it sticks. I'll report back next week. But I'll let you know that. Any final things you have on this game before we say goodbye to the good people?
No, I think it's good. I think we set it up well here. Excited for Major 1 too. Obviously, Major 1 right around the corner. I hear it's lovely in Boston this time of year.
It's beautiful. It's a nice warm, what's the weather right now? We got a 25-degree night, which is beautiful. 8-mile-per-hour winds. It feels like 16 out. So make sure you bring your Hawaiian shirts. It is summertime here, baby. Really enjoy yourself. But yeah, I'm looking forward to it as well. First land of the season. So with that being said, next week, when we do one of these, you're probably going to see me in a hotel room, kicking my feet up in, the beautiful city of Boston, doing it from probably a lot shittier of a microphone. So bear with me there, but the grind don't stop, and we got to put on a good show for the people. So get through this last weekend of online matches, and then we are on land, baby. But that's all we got for you. You have some incredible ammunition to go into Friday and make some educated picks. Hopefully you win some money. Hopefully we win some money. But until then, we'll see you next week.